Welcome to Next Game's Useful Windower 4 Add-ons and Plugins video, 2021 edition. Now in this video we'll start with going over the Windower 4 install, then I'll go over the recommended default add-ons, then I'll go into recommended default plugins, and then we'll finish with the manual add-ons, which basically refers to add-ons that you'll have to download and install manually into Windower 4. If you've already followed my useful Windower 4 plugins and add-ons from 2020 video and just want to see the new add-ons that I'm suggesting, go ahead and skip to the manually installed plugins at the end of this video, which is where all of the new content this year is. However, if this is your first time to the series, welcome, and let's go ahead and start by getting you set up with Windower 4. Now, if you've already followed my How to Make Final Fantasy XI Beautiful in 2021 video, you'll already have Windower 4 installed. If not, here's how you do it. You need to go to windower.net, I will put the URL in the description, and then click on this green Download Windower 4.3 button. Now, the file it downloads is not an installer file, it's an executable. So what you want to do is go to your Downloads folder, right-click on it, and then copy. Now go to wherever it is you'd like Windower 4 to reside, create a new folder, and call it Windower 4. Paste the windower.exe inside of this Windower 4 directory and then run it. This will have Windower download all the files it needs to run and install them in this directory. Now instead of opening Play Online to get to Final Fantasy, from now on you will launch Windower 4 and then click on this green arrow in the lower right hand corner to launch Play Online. During this video, if I refer to an add-on or a plugin as a default, then it means it will be automatically available to you when you download the latest version of Windower 4. It also means that these add-ons and plugins will be automatically updated, which is a nice feature. Now to download an add-on or plugin and install it for the first time, simply click on the arrow going down next to its name. After an add-on or plugin is downloaded, you can turn it on and off by clicking on the toggle next to its name as well. Now let's get our first few add-ons installed. The first add-on we are going to talk about is Battlemod. It's a default Windower add-on that customizes battle chat messages. Now, the two things that this mod does by default is condense multi-target buffs and multiple hits in the same attack round into a single line. This is most useful with when AoE buffs are cast, as well as with jobs that hit multiple times per attack round to clean up the battle log spam that can occur because of these things. This add-on is highly configurable through many XML files. Things such as the items that are condensed and the colors used can be changed. For more information on how to do this, you will want to go to the GitHub page that you will find a link for in the description of this video. The next add-on I will go over is called Cancel. It's also a default add-on that allows you to cancel buffs from the command line using buff IDs or buff names. It also accepts wildcards. What this all means is that you can simply type in something like / cancel copy image star to cancel all types of Utsemi shadows, or / cancel defender to cancel defender. Buff IDs can be a pain to track down, so that's why the ability to use buff names is so useful. As you can see here, / cancel copy image 3 does nothing. When we go up to our buffs menu, we see that the full name of this buff is actually copy image 4+. So when I cancel that through the command line, it now successfully cancels our shadows. Similarly, we just casted Kaka Ichi. To cancel this, we would not use / cancel Kaka. Instead, if we go up to the buffs menu, we can see that it's referred to as store TP. So / cancel store TP will give us the result we need. Now you may be wondering when it is we would use this. Well, it's mainly used in macros to cancel a buff before using another buff. So for instance, casting Utsemi Ichi while you have Utsemi Ni shadows up will result in you gaining no shadows. However, if you modify the macro as we are doing here to cancel those shadows right before we cast Utsemi Ichi, then we will be able to get the benefit of those new shadows. Now please note this is just an example of its use. There are many ways to cancel shadows before casting Utsemi with varying benefits. In this example, we run the risk of not having any shadows up if our Ichi casting is interrupted. The next add-on that I will discuss is Debuffed. This is another default Windower add-on that displays for you all of the debuffs on the current mob you are fighting. Up until recently, it did not include Ninja and Feebles, but after I pointed out this limitation, on the Final Fantasy AH forums. Some of the coders were able to figure out why it wasn't working and get it fixed, so as of a few weeks ago, this now also tracks ninjutsu and feebles. If you do not like the positioning of the window, you can simply click on it when it's visible and drag it to wherever it is you'd like it to be. This next add-on is called DistancePlus, another default windower add-on that tells you your distance from the mob. It also will tell you your distance from the pet if you have one. This add-on will automatically determine what job you are on and determine the correct mode to put you in. For instance, this is job ability mode and it's in for my ninja. Notice the numbers were in white when I was out of range, but once they turn green, provoke now works. If I were to be a Corsair, it would adjust it so that the color coded between white, yellow, green, and blue to tell you the best range for shooting, and in magic mode, it goes green when you are in range of being able to cast a spell. It will also display the distance to your pet if you have one, and if you use the //du height, it will activate height mode, which turns off all other modes and will tell you when the height difference between you and the mob is sufficient to avoid AoE. The next add-on we will discuss is DressUp. If you happen to watch my How to Make Final Fantasy XI Beautiful in 2020 video, you should already have this active. This default add-on has two main purposes. The first is to emulate BlinkMeNot capabilities to keep yourself and others from blinking when they change gear. To activate this ability, you can either type //du blinking all on into the command prompt each time you log in, or make sure that du blinking all on is in your init.txt file, which can be found underneath your Windower 4 directory, underneath the script subfolder. Now that we are no longer blinking when we change gear, let's talk about the second function of this add-on. It allows you to change your visible appearance to any race or face. Please keep in mind that you are the only one to see this change, as it's simply changing how your computer is displaying your model. By typing the command //du self race and then a race, you can change to that race. So //du self race Mithra will change me to a Mithra. Please note that for Hume, Elven, and Taru, you must specify male or female after the race. You can then change the face you are displaying by entering //du self face and then a number between 1 and 8, followed by A or B. For instance, //du self face 3B changes us to this face. You will have to go through all 16 faces to find the one that you prefer. Note that if you find a race that you prefer being all the time, other than your default race, then you can add the entries to your init.txt file to make sure that you're always that race. The entries that you are at are right there below. DressUp also has the ability to change your armor to whatever you'd like to display. To learn more of this functionality, you'll need to follow the link in the video description to this author's GitHub page. Now it's time to talk about the add-on EquipViewer, which the install has changed substantially for in the last 12 months. Originally, you had to manually install this last year in the 2020 video. However, now it has been made a default add-on of Windower 4, and therefore all you have to do is check the box in the add-ons menu before you log into the game, and it'll automatically load. Now sadly, it's going to load right in the middle of your screen, so you have to use a command in order to put it in the proper location. There are two ways to accomplish this. The first is to simply type in //EquipViewer space POS space and then the X and Y coordinates of where you want it on your screen. I suggest 1650 by 748 if you're on 1920 by 1080 resolution, and then I suggest using 2192 and 990 as your two numbers if you're at the 4K resolution. Now another way to implement this change is to simply remove the slashes from in front of the proper EquipViewer line inside of my init.txt file that was installed as part of the Make Final Fantasy XI Beautiful in 2021 video. Note, the first line is for 1920 by 1080 resolutions. The second line is for 4K resolutions. You only want to remove the slashes from one of them. The next add-on, GearSwap, is a default Windower 4 add-on that has pretty much unlimited capabilities in what it can do. Now, at its core, this is designed to swap you into specific gear sets based on 4 different situations. An idle setup, which is the kind of the gear you'll walk around town in. Your precast setup, which is the gear that you'll have on when you start casting a spell or ability. A midcast setup, which is the gear that you will have on when you finish casting that spell or ability, and then an aftercast setup, which is the gear that you will be switching to after that spell or ability is used. Now beyond that, people have programmed their GearSwap scripts to do a number of creative automated tasks. A few examples are to automatically use an echo potion when silenced, automatically change to a different gear set based upon the amount of haste you currently have, or automatically switch to an ideal gear set based upon the day or weather. And remember that these are just some examples of what people have done with GearSwap. Now for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm simply going to explain how to install GearSwap, which is frankly just a matter of turning it on in the Windower 4 interface. The difficult part is then either going out to the internet and finding an appropriate GearSwap file for your job that you will then need to alter to fit your gear setup, or to create a GearSwap LUA from scratch, which I do not recommend if you are not a programmer. Now after you've enabled GearSwap, all you need to do is go to your Addons folder, and then go inside the GearSwap folder, and then the Data folder. Now here's where you're going to be putting all of those LUA or job files that I was talking about that will actually tell GearSwap what to do. Now let's go ahead and show you. This is one that I made for my Ninja, and this is the type of thing that you'll have to do in order to actually get this file to work for you. As you can see here, I am listing every single piece of gear, ammo, head slot, rings, earrings, all that stuff here, and exactly in which gear set I want to use all of those pieces of gear. It's hundreds of lines long and incredibly detailed. Here you'll see exactly where it is I'm specifying the different spells that Ninja will cast and what piece of gear I'm supposed to change into at every point of that casting. So this is the complexity of how GearSwap works. And it is kind of overwhelming at first to kind of get into, but after you do get it set up, it greatly simplifies how you can play this game and greatly automates the changing of gear, which actually can bring a lot more enjoyment to your game, I find. Now in order to find some of these LUAs, you just kind of want to search on the internet for type in things like LUA, GearSwap, FFXI, and that's going to bring up other people's GitHub pages that have their own LUAs that they've shared. Go ahead and try and find one for the particular job that you're trying to use for GearSwap, and then open that file and play with it and go from there. I know that was just kind of a glance at GearSwap. Know that I'll be doing a much more further in-depth look in my next tutorial video, which will be going over Ninja macros. So look for that if you're looking for more information on exactly how GearSwap works. Let's go ahead and move on to our next add-on, ohShi. The next add-on, ohShi, is a default Windower 4 add-on that pulls important messages from the battle log and displays them next to the mob to make sure that they are not missed. Dangerous enemy castings as well as Void Walk proc messages are displayed here. It will also display Corsair rolls. You can configure the location, background, and text color of this box as well as add things for it to track. Type //ohShi help to get a list of the commands to do this. They are also displayed above. The next add-on is simply called Omen, and it helps you track the objectives as you progress from floor to floor. Depending on what other add-ons you have loaded, this box's current location may get in the way. To put it where you want, simply drag it to the location that works best for you. The next add-on is a Windower 4 default add-on, and it's called PetTP. It simply displays a text bar showing your pet's hit points and TP. I have this docked below my hit point bar usually, but you can drag it anywhere as you see here. This is the add-on's only function, and it has no option, so let's move on to our next. The next add-on is a default add-on that can be extremely useful in determining what gear sets work best against your current adversary. It's called Scoreboard, and it's a real-time DPS utility. It keeps track of all the attacks going on and outputs it into an easy-to-understand format. Now to make the window appear, you first need to type //sb space visible. You can then drag it to wherever it is you want to be located on your screen. If you always want this window to appear by default when you log in, then you want to remove the // and the space before the entry under the next game's edit in your init.txt file. In addition to what's shown in the display, you can also use a variety of commands to output additional information. You can check the following stats through the command line. Now some examples of commands that you can type to get results are //sb space stat space mavg. This will give you the averages of all of your melee attack rounds. You can also type //sb space stat space crit range. What that will do will give you the low and the high amount of damage that your critical attacks have done while they've been parsing. The next one we can do is let's try //sb space stat space acc. And that's going to give you your total ACC percentage or accuracy percentage while it's been tracking. The WS average stat is also extremely useful when it comes to parsing and determining just how much damage your weapon skill is doing on different gear sets over a long period of time. The last example we'll give is //sb space report space linkshell2. And this is going to output the results of your DPS to the entire linkshell chat for everyone to see. For instance, at like the end of a Dynamis run or something, so that everyone kind of see how they performed during that run. Now let's go ahead and talk about the last default add-on that I'm going to suggest, and it's one called Tparty. It has two primary functions. The first is to always show you the exact hit point number that your opponent is at. Now normally on a regular mob, this isn't going to be much of a benefit, but on bosses, especially ones that do not show their hit point bar, this can be extremely useful. Now the second function of this add-on is to show you all of your Alliance members' TP, including your trust, which can be quite helpful. Okay, that's going to be it for all of the default add-ons that I suggest. Now let's go ahead and go on to the 5 Windower plugins that I suggest. Fortunately, all of those are default plugins, which means you can simply activate them from the Windower GUI. Now the first plugin we installed is part of our How to Make Final Fantasy XI Beautiful in 2021 video, and it's called Config, and it's the main thing we use when it comes to uncapping our frames per second. SE has capped SVS at 30, but with this installed, if you type //config space frame rate divisor space 1, it will uncap your session to 60 frames per second. Please note you will still only be able to take advantage of what your system's resources can offer, but in many circumstances that should still be over 30 frames per second with most systems. Now if you always want it to be uncapped, you want to make sure the / is removed from the second frame rate divisor 1 line in your init.txt file underneath the next game edit section. Now you may ask why there are 2 of these entries. Well, the first one is specifically for my Make Final Fantasy Beautiful in 2020 video. However, I have discovered that once you install all of the add-ons and plugins that we just have, that for whatever reason that entry no longer works in the positioning that it's in that init.txt file. Therefore, we put a / and a space before that original entry and then move it to after the wait 30 command so that it ends up uncapping the frame rate about 30 seconds after you've logged in. Since I moved it here, it's continued to work without issue. Now that's it for the config plugin. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one, which is a simple plugin called DelayMeNot. Now all this does is removes that 1 second delay between when you hold down the Control or Alt key and when your macro bar pops at the top of the screen. This makes it much easier to actually know which macro you're pressing before you press it, especially if you don't happen to have your macros memorized yet. The next default plugin is called FFXIDB. It is a very useful plugin that displays a minimap on your screen. You can click on it at any time and drag it to a more convenient location. It will also conveniently turn itself off during events where it's not useful, such as Dynamis and Omen. The next default plugin is called InfoBar, and it displays useful information to help you in the upper left-hand corner. If nothing is targeted, it will display your current zone, job, and coordinates. If an enemy is targeted, it will display that enemy's current hit point total, how he detects you, as well as what he is weak against, and his approximate level. Sadly, these features don't work on many of the new zones and enemies, so this plugin is only useful some of the time. This brings us to the final plugin of the video. It's a default plugin called Timers, and it's one of the most useful tools that Windower offers. It keeps track of all current ability and spellcast recast timers, as well as durations on the buffs that you cast. This is one of the few display windows that cannot be relocated by dragging and dropping, so if you are unhappy with the placement of this add-on, you will need to change the Recast X, Recast Y, Buffs X, and Buffs Y entries inside of the timers.xml file, inside of the Windower 4, /plugins/settings directory. The next add-on is manually installed and called PartyBuffs. It shows you the buff of all your party members next to their names. Please note, it does not work on Trust or Alliance members. Now please note that PartyBuffs uses icons from the XIView add-on and not the default icons. You can also double the size of the icons by tapping //pb space size space 20. Type //pb space size space 10 if you want to set it back to the default. Now let's talk about how to get this add-on installed. You want to go to the GitHub location I've set up just for the PartyBuffs add-on. I will put the link down there in the description, and then click on partybuffs.zip. Once you're on that page, you then want to click on the download button that you see here. After the file has finished downloading, right-click on it, and then extract to PartyBuffs. Then copy that PartyBuffs folder that has just been created, and go ahead and put it inside of your Windower 4 add-ons folder. Now the last thing we need to do is activate this by going to the scripts and then the init.txt file, scrolling down to the next game edit section, and then removing the / and space before the LUA load PartyBuffs. Now if you're not using the next game's init.txt file, that's just fine. Just make sure you add that LUA space load space PartyBuffs line at the end of your init.txt file. GearInfo is a manually installed add-on created by Serbig666 that tracks your currently equipped gear and buffs to display valuable information. Now he no longer supports this add-on, and it's not 100% accurate when calculating things such as augments on gear, but it's a useful tool for quickly assessing an estimate of your current stats, including both gear and buffs. Now this add-on is highly configurable, but what I've done is gone ahead and set up a configuration just like you see here, so that you can download this from my GitHub and easily install it and get this result. Now if you want, you can change all of these boxes to be different colors or display different information, what have you, and I will put a link in the description of this video to Serb's GitHub page where it explains exactly how to do all that. Additionally, GearInfo has the capability to talk to GearSwap and actually do things like change your gear in relations to the readings that it's seeing here. Now I don't like doing that because I prefer to have complete control over those things, but know that that capability is there if you're on a job that you'd prefer to have it taking care of some of those things for you. Again, all of that information can be found on Serb's GitHub page. Now let's go ahead and discuss how it is we can manually get this installed. You will want to go to my GearInfo GitHub page. Again, you'll find the link down there in the description. Once you go there, click on the GearInfo link, and then on this download button to download the GearInfo.zip file. Once downloaded, simply right-click on it, 7-zip, extract to GearInfo. Once it's extracted, right-click on it and go to Copy. Now you want to go to where your Windower 4 directory is, and then to the add-on subfolder, then right-click Paste. Now GearInfo is installed. All we have to do is activate it in the init.txt file. So go to your scripts folder, and then open init.txt, and scroll to the next game edits portion. Now we want to remove the / and space from before LUA load GearInfo. Please do that as I have done here, and then hit File Save. Now you may be asking why there is that wait 30 command before the LUA load GearInfo command. I have learned that the LUA GearInfo command will not work unless your character is already logged in. Therefore I put that wait 30 command there so that by the time that wait is over, your character should be logged in, and therefore GearInfo loads successfully. Now once it's loaded successfully, as you can see here, I can drag it across my screen and into any location that I want. I prefer it right here, but you can put whatever works best for your particular resolution. Now the last thing I want to talk about is the wiki that is available for this add-on. It is extremely detailed and goes into all the different commands and features that you can use with it, as well as exactly what the GearSwap code is if you wanted to utilize this with GearSwap. I'll of course go ahead and put a link to this down there in the description so that you can delve into it further if you want to use this add-on more than I am using. Now the configuration of GearInfo confused a few people last year, so let's spend a minute on it. First off, once you've logged into the game, type in //gi space help to bring up this menu you see before you that gives you all of the commands. I then suggest typing in //gi space hide. This will hide everything, including the ugly logo that takes up too much room. Now type //gi space show space, and then any of these you see in front of you, such as haste, TP, ACC, EVE, def, ATT, STP, DW, MA, DT, or core. Activating all of those will show you the window that you see on the right here. The reason you do not want to do GI space show all is because that's going to end up showing that logo again, which we don't want to see. So you sadly have to manually add all of these, and then you will end up with the result you see over there on the right. Now, if for whatever reason you don't want to see some or all of those options, feel free to turn those off to lessen the amount of space this takes up on your room. Because as you can see, on a 1920 by 1080 resolution, we are starting to really fill up our screen with UI components. This is obviously much less of an issue on 4K resolutions. Go ahead and rearrange things on your screen the way you like, but this is the way I found works best for my particular configuration. The next add-on I'm going to talk about is a new one for 2021, and it's called Skillchains. You can find it at the URL you see here, and I'll put that URL also in the description of the video as well. Now when you get to this web page, you'll see all of these switches and commands that you can use for this particular add-on right here, but really the defaults work for almost everyone. Go ahead and click on Code and then Download Zip. Now once downloaded, you want to right-click on it, go to Extract All, and then accept the defaults and go to Extract. Once it's extracted, right-click on the folder and go to Rename. You want to remove the dash master at the end of this so it just says Skillchains. After you've renamed it, go ahead and go inside of the folder and make sure that the files are directly beneath it and not another Skillchains master folder. Once you have done that, right-click on the Skillchains folder that you've renamed and go to Cut or Copy. Now go to that Windower 4 folder, then Addons, then right-click in an empty area and go to Paste. Hit Continue if it asks for permissions. Now the last thing of course we have to do is activate it, so go into your init.txt file, which is located underneath the scripts subfolder underneath Windower 4. If you're using my init.txt file, you simply want to remove the / before the LUA load Skillchain section at the bottom of your init.txt file. If you aren't using my init.txt file, simply add that entry to the end of yours. Now that it's installed, let's go into the game to see what the end result is. As you will soon see in the upper left-hand corner, the Skillchains add-on will tell us what weapon skills we can currently use that will skill chain with the weapon skill that was just used. It will also tell us how much time is left in the skill chain and magic burst window when both of those open. This can be extremely useful when trying to get your timing right and when skill chains are being used that you aren't quite sure what links with them. This is another one of those windows that can be dragged anywhere on your screen, so make sure you put it where it's most effective for you. Now let's go ahead and move on to the last new add-on that I'm going to talk about, and it's called Parse. Now the Parse add-on is very similar to the Scoreboard add-on in that it tells you lots of things that's going on during battle and how things are going. However, it gives you a lot of different statistics than the Scoreboard does, which is why I like using both together. To get Parse, go to the URL you see above that will be in the description of this video as well, and then click on the green code button and then download zip. Now just like with Skillchains, once Parse is downloaded, right click on it, go to Extract All, accept the defaults and go to Extract. Once it shows you the folder parse-master, I want you to right click on it, then go to Rename. Just like with Skillchains, go ahead and remove that dash master at the end of parse so that it just says PARSE in all lowercase. Once that's finished, go ahead and go underneath that folder and make sure you see only files underneath it. As long as that's the case, you know you've done it correct. And now it's time to go back up, right click on that parse folder and go to Cut or Copy. Then navigate to your Windows 4 directory, then Addons, find an empty location, right click and paste. Hit Continue for permissions, and then it's time to activate this in the init.txt file. So go underneath the scripts folder underneath Windower 4, open init.txt, and then you want to either add the entry of LUA space load space parse at the end, or if you're using my init.txt file, just remove the / space before the entry that you see here. Then just save it and we're ready to see what our changes look like in the game. Now when you first load the add-on, only the melee component loads, so we're going to have to do some configuration to load the other components if indeed you want to use them. If you want to configure it further, type in //parse space help into the chat box and it will output all of the options you can use to configure the other windows. As you can see here, we can type in //parse space show and then any of the 4 following options: melee, ranged, magic, or defense to turn those on or off. So for instance, right now we could type //parse space show space ranged and it will bring up our ranged menu. Likewise, we can do the same with magic and defense. Note that the location of these windows is each managed independently, so you can drag them anywhere you want on your screen, and this is exceptionally helpful considering the fact that it's getting quite crowded now if you're on a 1920 by 1080 resolution. If you want to further configure Parse, there is a settings.xml file underneath the data folder of Parse that you can edit to change things such as color and transparency of the windows. That's going to be it for the Windower 4 Useful Add-ons and Plugins video 2021 edition. I hope you found that helpful. I'll be sure to update it again next year if there's any other new add-ons that come out that I find helpful. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Stay safe and stay healthy out there.